For nearly 4,500 years, they've guarded secrets, colossal, silent, and eternal. You've seen their majesty from afar, but what if you could step into the dust, into the sweat, into the sheer human will that built them? What if you heard the story of the pyramids from the very hands that shaped their stones? Prepare to be transported. Feel the brutal sun, the aching muscles, the awe, and the despair of those who poured their lives into these timeless wonders. This is the untold story from the heart of the dust. If you're ready for an epic journey into the true making of an ancient marvel, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to experience every part of this powerful series. The sun was already a hammer on the back of my neck when I arrived at the Giza plateau. One day, I was just another hand in a chain gang moving stone at a distant quarry. The next, I was here, swallowed by the sheer, overwhelming spectacle. Before me, two monstrous mountains of stone already rose, unfinished yet utterly dominant, dwarfing everything else in existence. And scattered around their bases, stretching further than the eye could see, was a city of tents, mud huts, and raw, unfinished rock. The workers' camp. The first breath I took here tasted like grit and sweat. The air was thick, a living thing made of dust that coated my tongue and burned my eyes. The noise was a constant, deafening roar, the rhythmic of thousands of hammers on stone, the groan of ropes under immense strain, the shouts of foremen, the distant, eerie chanting of men hauling impossibly heavy loads. It wasn't the ordered clamor of a village, it was the raw, primal sound of creation and destruction on an unimaginable scale. My first task was simple, yet exhausting. Hauling smaller stones. Not the monumental blocks for the core, but still heavy, jagged pieces meant for ramps or foundation work. My muscles, already aching from the journey in the quarry, screamed in protest. The sand bit at my bare feet, scorching hot, then chillingly cold as the sun dipped. I quickly learned the rhythm, the almost hypnotic sway of pulling a load with others, our bodies moving as one, driven by the overseer's whip or the distant, commanding shouts. Our foreman, a burly, scarred man named Kepri, barked orders in a voice that cut through the din. He didn't care about names, only about strong backs and quick hands. "Move, worm! The Pharaoh's eternal house waits for no man," he'd roar, his eyes scanning for any sign of weakness. Fear was a constant companion, a tightening in the gut. But it was also a motivator. You worked or you vanished. Simple as that. I saw men fall. Not often, not dramatically, but subtly. A stumble, a dropped stone, a moment of dizziness in the heat. A few quick shouts, and they were dragged away, replaced by the next anonymous body. There was no time for compassion, no space for hesitation. The work swallowed lives as easily as the desert swallowed a grain of sand. Yet amidst the overwhelming harshness, there was a strange, undeniable allure. When the sun began to set, painting the unfinished pyramids in fiery orange and deep purple, they didn't look like mere piles of rock. They looked like mountains, sculpted by gods reaching for the heavens. We were building something beyond human comprehension, a gateway for the Son of Ra himself. And as I laid my small, insignificant stone, a minuscule part of a colossal whole, I felt a strange mixture of awe and terror. This was my life now. This was my purpose. I was a single breathing atom, lost in the dust, but part of something that would stand for eternity. After weeks of hauling smaller stones and perfecting the brutal rhythm of the ramps, my unit was reassigned, not to the gentle slopes near the Nile, but deep into the quarries. This was where the true monsters were born, where the very bones of the earth were ripped apart. The air here wasn't just dusty, it was thick with the grit of pulverized rock, hot and choking. The sun, reflecting off the pale limestone, was blinding, even at dawn. The noise was different here too. Less the coordinated chant of 1,000 pullers, more the raw, grating shriek of chisels on stone, the dull thud of heavy hammers, and the piercing crack when a wedge finally split a colossal block from its bed. My new tool was a heavy copper chisel, blunted quickly by the unforgiving rock, and a wooden mallet that vibrated through my bones with every strike. Our foreman, a man whose face was etched with the lines of 100,000 blows to stone, showed us the method. Find the natural fissures, drive in the wedges, hammer, hammer, hammer until the stone groaned, then split. It was precise work, but also brute force. Days melted into an endless cycle of striking, prying, and clearing away debris. My hands, already scarred, now bled constantly, the fine rock dust irritating every cut. Muscles I didn't even know I possessed screamed in agony. The dangers of the quarry were omnipresent. A misjudged strike, a suddenly shifting rock face, a block slipping from its ropes. Death was swift and merciless here. I saw men crushed, their bodies dissolving into the dust they worked so tirelessly. Others fell into deep pits, their cries quickly swallowed by the constant din. We learned to move with a wary respect for the stone, for the sheer, unforgiving weight of it. But for all the pain, there was a strange satisfaction. As a monumental block, perhaps large enough to form a whole section of the pyramid's core, finally separated from the quarry wall, a collective guttural cheer would rise from the workers. This wasn't just raw rock, this was the essence of eternity, slowly being carved from the earth. We were reshaping the world, one agonizing strike at a time. The heat, the thirst, the aching limbs, they were all part of the offering. Life in the quarry camps was even more Spartan than near the pyramid. Water was scarce, food was basic, and sleep was a precious, brief oblivion. But there was a different kind of camaraderie here, forged in shared danger and the primal act of wrestling with the earth itself. We were the ones who brought the stone into being, the ones who gave the pyramid its very bones. And as I looked at the raw, majestic blocks awaiting their journey to the rising monument, I knew that a part of me, a part of every swing of my hammer, was now forever etched into their silent, unyielding hearts. The quarry was a realm of brutal, raw power, but the journey to the pyramid was a different beast altogether. Here, the challenge wasn't just breaking stone, but mastering its defiant weight. Once a block was separated from the rock face, carved and smoothed to the overseer's satisfaction, the real work began. These weren't just stones. They were giants, some as tall as a man, weighing more than a dozen oxen. My unit was now part of the pulling teams. We'd gather around a colossal block, already loaded onto a massive wooden sledge. The ground around the pyramids was a labyrinth of specially built ramps, some made of packed earth and rubble, others covered with slick mud or water to reduce friction. Also task was to pull. Thousands of us, sometimes hundreds on a single rope, spread out in long lines, our backs straining, our bare feet finding purchase on the graded surface. The foremen, often standing on elevated platforms, bellowed orders, their voices amplified by the open air. "Heave! Heave for the pharaoh!" they'd roar, their whips cracking to emphasize the command. We moved in unison, our grunts and groans forming a guttural chorus with the creak of the wooden sledges and the shifting of the sand. Every inch was a battle. My muscles burned, my lungs ached, and sweat mixed with dust stung my eyes. The ropes cut into my shoulders, leaving raw, burning welts. The dangers were constant. A rope snapping could send a dozen men tumbling down a ramp. A misstep could send a colossal block careening sideways, crushing anyone in its path. I saw it happen. A momentary loss of coordination, a sudden shift in the load, and screams were abruptly silenced. Death was always lurking, a silent, unseen partner in our labor. Yet, we kept pulling, because the alternative was worse, and because the monument continued its relentless ascent. The sheer organization of it all was mind-boggling. There were teams for everything: carpenters maintaining the sledges, water bearers keeping the ramps slick, scribes meticulously tracking every block, and countless other units working in perfect, brutal sync. It was like a living, breathing machine powered by human muscle and the unshakable will of the pharaoh. We were ants, but together, we were moving mountains. As a block reached a higher level, the ramps would become steeper, the pulling even more agonizing. Sometimes we'd spend an entire day moving a single stone only a few dozen cubits. But then, it would be there, resting on the growing mass of the pyramid, another piece of the eternal puzzle. Looking up at the colossal structure, its golden capstone, though not yet in place, a distant dream, I felt a strange mix of despair and awe. We were building something truly immortal, a monument that would defy time itself. One aching pull, one bleeding shoulder, one agonizing inch at a time. This was the giant's journey, and we were its unwitting guides. The pyramid was no longer just a distant dream. It was a rising mountain of stone that now loomed over us, its angles sharp against the relentless blue sky. My unit was moved directly to the structure itself, to the ever higher ramps clinging to its sides. This was different from the quarry, different from the long poles across the plateau. Here, the air thinned. The sun beat down with even greater ferocity, and the ground was no longer flat earth, but the hard, unyielding stone we had so painstakingly brought here. Working on the pyramid meant constant vigilance. Each step on the ramp was precarious, especially with the weight of tools or smaller stones. A misplaced foot, a loose rock, and you could tumble down, a tiny speck against the immense rising edifice. We pressed on, sweating, grunting, our bodies protesting with every ascent. The higher we climbed, the more the world below seemed to shrink. The sprawling camp, the distant Nile, even the other pyramids now dwarfed by the one we built. The precision of the master stonemasons was astounding. They'd mark each block, guide its placement with shouts and hand signals, ensuring it fit perfectly with its neighbors. There were no gaps, no wasted spaces. It was a giant, silent puzzle, and we, the nameless hands, were fitting its pieces together. The air vibrated not just with effort, but with a strange reverence. This wasn't just construction, it was a sacred act. We were building a home for a god, a staircase to the stars for the son of Ra. And standing there, under the immense weight of the heavens and the rising stone, you couldn't help but feel a part of something eternal. Life in the workers' camp at the base of the pyramids was a world unto itself. It was a sprawling city of mud brick barracks and tents, teeming with tens of thousands of men and a smaller number of women who cooked and managed the daily needs. After the brutal shifts, we'd collapse in our shared quarters, our bodies aching, our minds numb. Food, though basic, bread, beer, onions, was mostly sufficient, a stark contrast to the whispered tales of earlier, leaner times. There were healers in the camp, men skilled at setting broken bones and stitching wounds, but their remedies were often rough, and many fell to infections or exhaustion. The cart for the dead was a regular sight, a grim reminder of the price of eternity. Yet even here, moments of humanity flickered. Laughter around a shared beer jug after sundown, a quiet song sung in the twilight, the camaraderie forged in shared suffering. We were all bound by the same purpose, the same exhaustion, the same hope that one day we might return to our villages. The overseers walked among us, vigilant, quick with the whip for idleness, but even they seemed small against the backdrop of what we were creating. The entire operation was a testament to meticulous planning, the flow of materials, the rotation of crews, the management of thousands of lives. We were cogs in a giant machine, driven by the distant will of a divine pharaoh. And as the sun would set, painting the pyramid in fiery hues, I'd look up at the soaring stone, knowing that a piece of my life, my sweat, my very being, was now forever part of that ascent to the sky. The air was electric, thick with an anticipation unlike any I had felt before. The pyramid, now a gleaming, impossible peak, soared into the heavens. Only the very top, the sacred pyramidion, remained. Weeks of meticulous work had gone into polishing the outer casing stones, each surface reflecting the sun with blinding intensity. It felt like the entire world held its breath. Then came the final act. I stood with countless others, our necks craned, as the great pyramidion, polished to a brilliant sheen, perhaps capped with gold, was slowly, agonizingly hauled up the last ramp. It was a moment of supreme tension, a single misstep meaning catastrophe. But the engineers, the foremen, and the teams of pullers worked with a precision born of years of toil and countless lives poured into this very task. When it finally settled into place, a collective, guttural roar erupted from the thousands gathered below. A cheer unlike any other, a release of years of pain, sweat, and unyielding effort. The ceremonies that followed were unlike anything I had ever witnessed. Pharaoh himself, a distant, magnificent figure, oversaw the final rituals. Priests chanted, incense filled the air, and offerings were made to the gods. This wasn't just a building. It was a cosmic event, a bridge between our world and the afterlife, a testament to a divine will made manifest by human hands. And we, the nameless, the dust-covered, had built it. After the completion, the great work camp slowly began to empty. Some men, like me, were permitted to return to our villages, our terms of service fulfilled. My body was broken, scarred by years of sun, stone, and endless toil. My hands were calloused beyond recognition, but my spirit carried an indelible mark. I had been part of something truly eternal. The journey back to my village felt both incredibly long and impossibly short. The familiar sights of the Nile Delta, the green fields, the simple huts, they were unchanged, yet I was profoundly different. My wife, aged by worry, wept upon seeing me, seeing the gaunt stranger who had returned. My children, now older, looked at me with awe and a touch of fear, sensing the vast chasm between their lives and the ordeal I had endured. I never spoke much of the details, of the deaths, the relentless pain, the dust that seemed to cling to my very soul. How could I explain the silent despair, the camaraderie forged in shared suffering, or the terrifying beauty of moving a mountain? But sometimes, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, I would look west towards the distant plateau of Giza. I knew it was there, the pyramid, a gleaming beacon in the desert. It stood, a silent, monumental testament to a pharaoh's vision and the countless, anonymous lives poured into its creation. It was a symbol of power, of faith, of human endurance beyond measure. And I, Cam, a simple man from the banks of the Nile, was forever a part of it. My voice, my sweat, my life echoed within its cold, unyielding stones, whispering tales of eternity and the true cost of greatness.